Science and Management. He has worked with very well-known national and international science institutions, and he is an icon in himself on managing the information and various journals and indexing and all that. Now, without wasting too much time, we'll request Professor Arunachalam to start his talk. He will be talking to us on Web of Science and Web of Knowledge, which is a new range of tool, which will be extremely useful to our scientists now and in future. Now, one request. As soon as the session is over, there will be question answer session, and I request all the people who wanted to ask question, go near the mic, switch on mic, and then ask question. Because we are live streaming this session on internet, and those questions and answers will be very clear to even audience outside when we speak on the mic. So I request Professor Arunachalam to start his session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today I am going to introduce you to a world of searching information using a tool called Web of Science. This is not really a new tool. This has been there since the early 1960s, which is more than 50 years. But unfortunately, this is a tool which has not been widely used in India. Although of late, there are many institutions which have subscription to this database thanks to the many consortia all over India, the CSIR consortium, probably the ICIR consortium, and so on, the University Grants Commission consortium. So it's widely available, but not very intelligently used. So when I came to know that the ECRISAT has subscribed to this database, I thought this is a great opportunity for scientists like you, and especially the younger researchers here, to take advantage of this tool. And my friend Madan said, why don't you come and talk to us about it? That's why I'm here today. This tool is many things rolled into one. This is the front page of the database. This is how it looks. If you have used it, you have seen this. Okay. All these rectangular boxes are the locations where you type the address of the author, or the names of the authors, or the topics you want to search, and so on, as well as years, the periods you want to search, and so on. So this is the database it looks like. So I'm going to tell you more about it in the next 45 to 50 minutes. Okay. First of all, I want to ask you a few questions. And some of you can answer quickly. Anyone can. Have you used science and technology databases? And if so, which one of them do you think helps you the most? And can you tell the differences in those databases in terms of the features they offer? Any one of you, the younger ones here, please. Quick. Come on. Okay, that's really a good solution. Really a good solution. If you have a competent librarian, and nothing like it. Suppose Madan is on vacation for 1 month. What do we do? Yeah, any database. I'm sure most of you would have actually used CAB abstracts, and many of you chemists would have used chemical abstracts, and many of you working in plant biology would have used biological abstracts, and so on. And these abstracts are not all the same kind. There are minor variations. But this tool that we are going to talk about today has tremendous differences between those older databases. Suppose if you want to locate someone in a new town, you look for a street number, the door number, the street address, and the location where it is. Is it in Nampalli, or is it in whatever other place here in Hyderabad? And this is how all the databases in the earlier times were designed. They will give they give the title of a document, names of authors with their initials and so on, journal title, the year in which the article was published, volume, page, and so on. So it's something like a street address for a person. But when you want to search, you can start from the author's name or a keyword. Normally, these are the two options you have. But there was a man called Dr. Eugene Grofield. He is currently 87, and he was not very happy with this system. And he went to do a PhD in chemical linguistics, and he has been in a library school and so on. And he was, as a young boy, he was influenced by his stepfather and an uncle. One of them was a businessman running a small-time shop. The other was a Marxist. So he got the combination of Marxist left-oriented ideas and business ideas. So he wanted to do something very socially relevant and also make a little bit of money out of it. So this gentleman wasn't happy with this arrangement of merely giving the author name or title and keyword, etc. So he thought the scientific papers that we are looking for, they are not mere papers. They are not inanimate objects. They are living and vibrant and pregnant with ideas that can help us generate new ideas. Each paper has something worth using. That's why we quote them in our papers. They are pregnant with new ideas. And those ideas we use in generating further new ideas, or new knowledge as you may call. And they should be characterized by animate and dynamic links, not by inanimate stuff like addresses and so on. So most of us people working in laboratories, scientists and research students and so on, we look at references as reaching backward in time. Because if you take a research paper and look at all those references, they all will be dated prior to the paper. If you write a paper in 2013, there will be not a single paper in your reference list which will be in 2014, because it's yet to come. All the papers will be either 2013 or prior to that. Now, if you have a way by which you can go forward, then you will have your paper, the paper that you are looking itself becomes your subject. Now, how can it be done? Your own paper in future will be cited by somebody. When you write a paper in 2013, 2 years hence I may quote it, or somebody else in your own lab may quote it and so on. So he thought if I can link the past links which are given in the references and the future links which are yet to be quoted, your own paper will be quoted, he will get a more useful tool. This is like providing new coordinates. Instead of merely providing a title of a paper or volume, year and page, now I am going to give you new coordinates, namely all the references that are there in your paper and all the people who will be quoting you in the future. These are the new coordinates. This is something like you tell me your friends and then I will tell you who you are, something like that. Okay. So by the references that you cite and the references which cite you, I can place this paper in the whole world of knowledge where it is located. Suppose if I write a paper in theoretical physics, I am not going to quote a paper in botany. And suppose if you are working in an area of applied genetics, it's rarely possible for you to quote a paper in theoretical physics. So we can place them. I'm giving a very rough idea of overall fields. But as you go along, I will give you further details about how you can zero in on narrow specialties and so on. This idea, Grofield thought 3 decades in advance of anybody ever thought of the World Wide Web or Internet or hyperlink, the connections. It was a great idea, very seminal development in the area of information retrieval. I think in the entire history of information science, this is the #1, the greatest ever advance made by anybody. It's very seminal. It has spawned many new things. Now this idea has developed into a powerful tool called Web of Knowledge. Web of Knowledge is a platform. It is like Unix or Linux or Microsoft Windows. It's a platform. But this platform hosts a large number of databases, at least 15. And the most important database it hosts is called Web of Science. This Web of Science, you all have seen the spider weaving its web in the corner of a room. Not in ICRISAT, they keep it very clean, but in some old laboratories and so on, you can see a spider web. What is the web? In the center, there is the insect. And all around, you see the connections. So that's what we call a web. Here, the web is woven not by the spider, but by the scientists. And all those papers which are related to the papers, what they write, it constitutes a web for that. So he used that concept to name it Web of Science. Actually, when it was originally set up, he called it Science Citation Index, because the whole thing was about science. It is based on citations and it provides an index. So a very simple name, he gave Science Citation Index. As it evolved, it became the Web of Science. Now, this is a powerful tool. I have been using it for at least 30 years now, and I know how powerful it is. So, as somebody who benefited from something, I want the rest of you also to benefit from that. I want to share the joy I had using this tool and the enormous benefits I have received from this tool. Now, there is a tool similar to this, which goes back and forth and tells you, and we all use it without fully realizing what we are doing. We all go to Google. If you want to know something, first thing is go to Google, and then you type one word and you get millions of useless stuff and a few useful stuff. So they use something called page rank. Whatever has been cited more or referred to will appear in the first. They use the concept called page rank in developing Google, and this page rank, they got the idea from original paper of Grofield. Grofield, way back in 1955, wrote a paper in the journal Science of American Association for the Advancement of Science, which is rated one of the most highly regarded journals of the world, along with Nature. He wrote a paper in 1955 where he mentioned about these concepts and so on. And when they wrote about page rank, both Larry Page and his colleague, they quoted this paper. And when the patent was granted to these two guys for Google, they didn't mention this. And the patent examiner said, hey, what are you doing? Here is a paper which is similar, very similar to what you are doing. And then they quoted it. In fact, when there were two students, two of them were students in Stanford, and they're dropouts. They never completed the degree. And when they were there, when they were talking about this idea, one of their friends William Arms pointed to them, here is a paper which would be useful to what you are developing. So actually, Grofield preceded the most used tool called Google. Now, as I said, Web of Knowledge has 15 or more databases, but we are here at ECRISAT subscribed to only one called Web of Science. But it has got three parts: Science Citation Index expanded, Social Science Citation Index, and Arts and Humanities Citation Index. There are three parts to this database. But when you search this database, they seamlessly go through all three. So suppose if a sociologist writes a paper on networking, and a computer scientist finds it useful when talking about social networking, that paper in a sociology journal will appear here because it also has Social Science Index. And they also have a companion volume called Journal Citation Reports, or JCR for short. This is also used by many people, and this one tool which has given to one of the most evil uses of any scientific tool in the world. This JCR is the one which gives what we call impact factor for journals. And the impact factor is the one which is least understood by scientists and science administrators everywhere in the world, especially in India. And they're using it left, right, center for all wrong purposes without really understanding what it means. Now, all these databases are accessible to you online at your desk. You don't have to go to library. You can sit at your desk, and because they are all, the access is provided through IP address. But you cannot get JCR because you have not subscribed to it. And if you have problems, there should not be any problem because the manuals tell you everything. But if you have problems in the initial days, you have a very good library system here. You can go to your staff there and get it solved. Now, this is originally owned by Dr. Grofield. Later on, it passed on hands. Finally, it landed with Thomson Reuters. Reuters is the very famous news agency people, and the Thomsons were database people and newspaper people. They merged. It's originally a Canadian company, but it's a multinational now. And they have put out a lot of free literature about these services, and it's all available on the net for you to download and keep a print copy, and you can read and learn about them. In these databases, publication and citation data are updated every week, so you don't have to wait for long. Now, Web of Science, as I told you earlier, indexes both cited and citing works, which enables the user to make explicit links between current research and prior scientific works. So, I said, unlike the previous databases like chemical abstracts or biases and so on, Web of Science permits you, all users of Web of Science, to link several documents. The current with all the past documents it quotes, the current with all the future documents that will quote this paper and so on. So these links it provides, and that is this link which constitutes a web which provides you tremendous opportunities to improve your performance in research, improve your visibility around the world and so on. We will talk about it in a few seconds, few minutes. Now, you can use the cited reference data to move both backwards and forwards in time. The area databases will permit you only to move backwards. This database will permit you to move forward as well. For example, let us take one of the most outstanding Indian scientists of my generation was a man called G.N. Ramachandran. He was a great biophysicist, and he did work similar to that of the one which won the Nobel Prize for Crick and Watson. They chose a double helix molecule. Our friend chose a triple helical molecule, which is far more difficult to solve the structure and so on. But anyway, he is in the same class. Now, he has written several papers during his time. He also passed away a few years ago. Now, there are many people who are quoting those papers now in crystallography, in biophysics and so on. And he himself would have quoted many papers. For example, his own mentor, Sir C.V. Raman, he would have quoted and so on. Now, if you take G.N. Ramachandran's papers as the point, you can go backward to Raman's papers and forward to today's biophysics students and so on, and weave the web for that paper. And if you collect many such papers, you will have a huge number of connections and so on, and we can use them for some good purpose. And you can use citation analysis to find influential authors in your field. Suppose you are working in chickpeas, you can find out who are the other people in the world, which are the other labs working in chickpeas, and so which aspect of it they are working, and so on you can find out. And then you can find out, are they publishing high impact or influential papers, and so on. Okay. And if you need to collaborate with them, you can enter into collaboration. So, discover important authors, institutional research collaborations, determine where the most impactful research in the world is being done, and so on. And you can also analyze research from high impact journals in the given fields and seamlessly link to your full text articles. The moment you find some paper by some group and you think it is important for your research, you can access to the full text provided your library subscribes to the journal. Just one click, you will get it. If you don't, there is another mechanism by which you can get. I will come to it the last. Now, this is the thing I am telling you. In the left hand side, you see all the papers A and B. They are today's papers. The C, D, E, S are all the past papers. These are all being cited by A and B. This is what we call the bibliographic coupling. So, two papers, A must have quoted about 20 papers, B must have quoted about 15 papers. But out of these 20 and 15, 4 of them are common. That means it's a strong coupling. 4 out of 15 and 4 out of 20 is a strong coupling. See, there are millions of papers available for these authors to quote, but then they quote specifically these 4 in common. That's a very good coupling. So, here again, if you, on the right hand side, if you see, now these same A and B are cited by other papers. C, D, E, F, etc. In future. So you see these two things, these connections, this is the way the web is formed, and this is what the database captures, and they are capturing it for thousands and thousands of papers, not one or two, and putting it all out. Anything connected to any other paper will be available here. The connections, the links are available, not the individual papers alone, but all the links. Like for everybody, I know who are your friends, and who consider you their friends, and so on. Something like that. Okay. So huge connection map is being done. It's like mapping of all the papers ever published in any one of the journals indexed by it. Now, Web of Knowledge has integrated with other Thomson Reuters productivity tools. Two of them are very important. One is called EndNote. I'm sure some of you might be using EndNote. And there's another important thing called Researcher ID. This is free. Now, suppose if my name is Subbiah Arunachalam. So I sign it in my paper, it will be indexed as Arunachalam, yes. There are many Arunachalams in organic chemistry, in physical chemistry, in biophysics, in library science, in agronomy, and so on. Some of them may even have the same initial as yes. So how do you know that the paper that you see with name Arunachalam yes as one of the authors is written by me? This is a problem called homonym, same name problem. Now, the government of India has recently started a system called UID, Universal Identification or Aadhaar system, and so on. Each of us will be given a single number, like all the prisoners in Guantanamo jail. Each individual will be given a number. So here, the research ID will provide a unique identification for all scientists in all fields. So that is available so that you will not misconceive who is the real author of a given paper. The EndNote, so you write a paper. At the end, you give references. Different journals have different styles. For what style nature adopts may not be adopted by current science. What style plant physiology adopts, some other journal may not adopt. Suppose one paper is written by the editor. You want to send that paper to another journal. Then you have to redo all that. Now, EndNote, by one click, you will follow that style, automatically it will convert to all that. This is one of the examples. There are many such things EndNote can do for you. And there is a single author subscription as well as a group subscription. Suppose if you say we are about 50 people who are writing papers regularly in ICRISAT, probably you can subscribe for all 50, not at the 50 into one price, but maybe much lesser price and so on. And then this database of Web of Science covers close to 13,000 journals, indexes 13,000 journals. There is a major database called Ulrich, which is about all periodicals in the world, including trade journals and magazines and so on. They have about 300,000 titles, of which 100,000 are what are called STEM titles: science, technology, engineering, and medicine. And mathematics. These four areas, about 100,000. But here it is about 12,000 or 13,000. But there is an estimate by a leading thinker of our times called Stephen Harnard, which says there are 25,000 refereed journals which are worth considering as proper science, technology, engineering, and mathematics journals. So this covers close to 50% of that. You may ask why? What about the other 50? We all know that much of the world is distributed in a very skewed manner. About 20% of anything will cover 80% of its impact. 20% of the people in the world will have 80% of the riches. The other 80% will be having only 20% of the riches, and so on. 20% of the world will be highly educated. Other 80% will be very poorly educated, and so on. So it's a distribution. So 20% of journals are very, very important. Like it starts from Nature and Science and so on and comes down and down and down, and they put a cutoff somewhere. So that is why they chose this. And then they cover under many subject categories, and out of this about 8,400 are in the area that we cover, hard sciences, science citation index. And about 3,000 are in the social sciences. People like Nedumaran will use economics, sociology, and so on. And about 1,700 are in the area of arts and humanities, like Leonardo from MIT, where they talk about painting, sculpture, and so on. You may be interested, but you don't quote those papers necessarily in agronomy journal, but still it is there. ICRISAT subscribed to that as a package. And they also cover 12,000 conferences every year, annually. And about this has 50 million unique records so far. And these 50 million records have been quoted 800 million times. But this number is inflated as far as ICRISAT is concerned because this starts from 1901. Between 1901 and 1944, the number of journals they covered were very small because in those days there were not many journals. From 1945 onwards, they started covering larger number. And the number increased year by year. And today, as you see, 13,000 ACA and so on. Okay? This is the strength of this database. Unlike other databases, chemistry, biology, or engineering, etc., this is a multidisciplinary database. It covers A to Z in every part of science. These are the numbers. Now, these 8,000 journals include 24,200 new records every week. And these 24,200 records have 420,000 sites. So this is how it is added every week. So it's a huge number. And the web, you see the web, if each one of them are connected, if all of them are connected to all of them, it will be a complete dark blob. You can't see anything. No details will be visible to the naked eye. So, but that is a possibility it offers. Every connection to any other paper in the whole system from 1901 to today is there. It is covering both time and space. Whether you publish a paper in Brazil and I quote it in India, or whether you wrote a paper in 1800s or during the time of Newton or Galileo and I quote it now, it will be still covered. Time as well as space, no problem. It's all covered here. About 2,500 journals are evaluated annually for inclusion. There are new journals coming up, okay? So they should not be left out. So they have a process. They evaluate those journals for inclusion, and about 10%, 1/10 of them are accepted. Now, who can suggest a journal? Normally they depend upon information professionals like me, or librarians like your people in the library here, or the experts in the literature. Some of you directors are senior researchers here, or even students who perform research in the lab. Anybody can suggest. All suggestions are welcome and they evaluate it later on. Now, if a journal is covered, they cover everything. Not any article is left, not any reference is left. Everything is covered. There is no halfway measures. A journal is covered means it is covered 100%. And then all of them are linked to addresses, making the affiliation clear. Every author's address is given, not just the first author. In many of the earlier databases, only the first author's address will be given. Here, every author's address is given, so you can do research on collaboration, international collaboration, etc. And all addresses are captured and they are standardized. For example, there are many places we do differential names. For example, Institute of Mathematical Sciences. I might have spelled it as Institute of Mathematical Science. Someone else must have written as Institute of Mathematics and Science. Someone else must have given abbreviation as Inst Math Sci. And so many variations are there. All variations are taken into account. They are all merged and only attributed to one institution. So we don't have to take the trouble to merge them. It's automatically done. And most importantly, it also gives acknowledgement, it also searches the acknowledgement column and finds out if we have taken funds from Ford Foundation or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation or DST or ICAR, that information. Suppose if I want to know if ICAR is getting its money's worth, they are funding so many people, or if John is putting enough effort and giving good results to them, I can look at it. So that also they are providing. The entire research cycle, as I said earlier, it is connected to EndWeb and EndNote and Researcher ID. Okay. Also, when you want to search, it provides you opportunities to use what we call Boolean algebra or operators. These Boolean operators are three of the most important operators are and or not. If you want to search for example, I want to search salinity and chickpea. Both words are used in the topics, the up track. I can do with and. Suppose if you want to find out a larger group, any paper, either salinity or chickpea I can do or. Suppose if I want only one, but not related to chickpeas. I want all about salinity, but not related to chickpeas. Then I can use not and so on. So in the topic search you can do that. Then you can use truncation search. If a word, let us say catalytic, catalysis, catalyze, I just put catal with a star. It will pull out all those papers using those words. It can also use different forms. For example, I can write run, ran, running, runs, and so on, or singular and plural. Even without that yes form, there's a different kind of plural. Mouse, you don't say mouses, you say mice. Even that it will capture. So all that it will capture. Here is a sample paper, one from ECRISAT by Dr. Vades and his colleagues. Large variation in salinity tolerance and so on. It gives you authors, it gives you source where it is taken from, year, page, and so on. And it was cited 24 times. This paper was cited after it was written by others 24 times. And also, this paper has it in its own text, at the end of the text, it has 18 references. Okay. And beyond that, because this screen is limited space, beyond this there is abstract, address, and so on. Among the 18 references, there are these 5 or 6 of them. As I said earlier, all of them are prior to the date of the publication. The paper itself was published in December 2007, and all of these are prior to December 2007. And if you also see, some of them by the same group, and some of them by outsiders. Now, what can you do now? There are 2 questions. Are there papers Dr. Valdez and others could have quoted in this paper, could have benefited by reading? Or that? Now, no other database can give an answer to this question. This database can. Now, I will take you through this process slowly. There is a paper written by Valdez and colleagues in 2007 on chickpea, salinity, etc., and in particular journal. And they have quoted 18 references. Now, our question is, are there additional references they could have quoted? That is the question now. Can anyone tell me how it can be done? Okay, the answer is simple. Now, you go to the papers they have cited. Let us make a topic search with 2 keywords, salinity and tolerance. They have used these 2 words. And then salinity tolerance and chickpea. You get 50 papers published prior to 2007. Dr. Valdez and colleagues could not have quoted any paper beyond 2007. You limit your search to 2007. Then compare the 18 they have quoted with these 50. And you will find only one of them common. There are 14 and other references which we could examine whether they are worth looking into and using in our paper. The other 14 are worth examining. Of these, 5 were published before 91, and therefore they were not available to us through the ECRISAT's subscription to this database. As a next step, examine the 18 references in the ECRISAT paper. And for other keywords, apart from the salinity, tolerance, and chickpea, there are 2 in one paper called drought tolerance and pearl millet. In the 18 they have quoted, these 2 words appear. Now search this. As the next step, we can search for barley, double podding. These are also quoted in another reference among the 18. Now we can continue this iterative process and accumulate more and more references, and then examine them if they have any connection with the current paper written by Valdez and colleagues. Now there is a limitation of time and energy. I can do this eternally this iterative process for all time to come. And but you have to finish some job, there could be a cutoff and so on. So you have to determine what will be the optimum search strategy for yourself. How much you can go, 1 level iteration, 2 level iteration, you have to decide that. Some of them you can remove straight away by reading the title. A few of them may be worth, that's only Dr. Valdez and colleagues can determine, not me or you. The authors can determine, and they can look at those papers and see if there is something valuable. Sometimes what happens is a new paper that is thrown up by this iterative search may lead you to conducting a new experiment, because there's something valuable you see, and then you want to make a quick check. So you may do a new experiment, and then you can improve the overall value of your publication. These are possible if you use this database very intelligently and effectively. Now these are the citing papers. And again we find of the 23 citing papers, this paper was cited by 23 people. The paper by Valdez and colleagues on salinity tolerance, chickpea, etc. was cited by 23 people. Of the 23, 21 have at least one author common. In the paper there are, say, let us say 5 or 6 authors. Of the 23 papers, 21 have at least one of the 5 or 6 authors in common. These are called self-citations. Either they are all home-based, namely Krisat Pattancheru, or many of them from Pattancheru and some from other labs from Germany or Italy, whatever, with whom they collaborate. So these are called self-cited papers. Now there are only 2 papers others have quoted. Now your strategy should be to encourage a large number of others to look at your paper and quote. So all of us want to increase our research visibility. So okay, I want to be seen and quoted by more and more people. I means my paper, it should be seen by more people. Now only, apart from the people who wrote the paper, only 2 others have seen till today. Now how could I make it 5, 10, 15? That should be our question now. Okay, there are solutions. One of them is to look at all those authors who have published papers in similar topics. We found 49 others apart from the one which are common. Now if you could collect all the email addresses and alert them to what you have done in this area, that you can leave it to your library staff or somebody. Or obviously open access is one possibility, and the second possibility is to alert potential users of your paper through email or whatever. Okay. Now so far we have looked at the basics. This is only the tip of the iceberg. I have not even covered all the basics here for want of time. And I gave you only one example, and then how to use this web to increase your own research quality by looking at other references and possibly your visibility, etc. Now we will look at something else. It's like a treasure house. This database is a treasure house, and you can take as much as you want only if you know how to do it. You should know how best to approach the database and achieve as much as you can in limited time. There was a guy called Don Swanson. He passed away a few months ago, November 2012. A good friend. He worked in Chicago University. He was a theoretical physicist and working mainly for the corporations. And suddenly he received an invitation from Chicago University's chancellor. Why won't you come and join us? And he thought it was for an invitation for a physics professor. But then he went through the letter. At the end it says, be the dean of our library school. A physics professor was put in the library school. So he said, okay, if you want me, I'll come. And then he started looking at library work. And then he thought, what is happening? There are a lot of these tools and these fellows are not using it effectively. Let me tell them how to do it, he thought. And then he took up a few things, especially medical related literature he took up in citation index. And looked at, first he looked at Raynaud's disease. It is something to do with blood disorder. And then he looked at various papers in Raynaud's disease. And then he said, totally 2 unconnected literatures, not one paper in this group and this group are common. He took 2, but both of them are talking about blood, that's all. And then he found out fish oil can play a role in Raynaud's disease, in the cure of Raynaud's disease. He didn't do any experiment. He was not a physiologist. He was not a medical doctor. He was not a medical researcher. He was a theoretical physicist. Nothing to do with biology, nothing to do with medicine. And he didn't do any laboratory work. He sat in his room, looked at citation index morning till evening, and then separated these two totally unconnected literature setup and found out Raynaud's disease and fish oil are somewhere connected. He wrote it, a paper. Within 2 years, several pharmaceutical companies tried and they said, yes, it is true. A medicine was introduced in the market by a librarian who only used citation index and no experiment. One may think it is a chance. 2 years hence, he looked at migraine and then he looked at the literature, unconnected literature. Both of them have something common, which is migraine on the one hand, magnesium on the other. He wrote another paper. If you use magnesium, it might help you in treating migraine. Again, many companies and the pharmaceutical departments and universities researched and they came up, yes, it is true. 2 medicines were introduced by this gentleman and many more later. I am only giving you the first 2 examples, migraine and magnesium, Raynaud disease and fish oil, solely based on literature analysis. This is the possibility citation index Web of Science offers us. So we may also get something related to your own crops here, your own products and processes. One can also do that. So it requires enormous talent, but it is well within the realm of possibility. And now there is another guy called Ronald Kostov. This Kostov gentleman worked for the US Office of Naval Research. Nothing to do with weapons, but the strategies, management of Navy and so on. So in his free time, he read Swanson's papers and thought, I also have access to a web of knowledge. Let me also try something. He took the same thing and advanced it far ahead. So like any follower can go much longer than the original guy. So I had the good fortune of meeting both of them and learning something from them. And I also give one more example nearer home. How many of you have heard the name of Sambhunath Dey? D.E. Sambhunath Dey. No, okay. He is a very great man. He is as great as Mahatma Gandhi for me. He was the man who found out what causes cholera. Cholera has been there right from prior to Christ, and it has been people have been devastated by pandemics and epidemics and so on. Now, once it strikes, it kills thousands of people, especially in Eastern India, Bangladesh, and so on. And also Europe and the US are not exceptions. They also had the problem. And there was a lot of research. NIH and others are pumping so much money into it, and no one could find out what is the basic cause of cholera. And our friend finally found out, sitting in a local college, Calcutta Medical College, with a couple of research assistants, he found out it is an enterotoxin. The first clue came from his lab. And Joshua Lederberg, the famous Nobel laureate, recommended his name to the Nobel Foundation that he should be awarded a Nobel Prize, not once but many times. Unfortunately, they didn't get it. What is more distressing was, in this own country, here in India, his own country, he was not given a Bhatnagar Award. He was not elected to any of the academies, general or medical, and he was not given anything. He died unsung. This gentleman, whose name was suggested for a Nobel Prize, who was the first to discover the reason behind cholera, but he didn't get an award. This is because our total failure in setting up a good peer recognition system. The peer review system in this country was wanting. Now, my argument, if we had used this kind of tools in those days, like citation index, they wouldn't have missed him, because his papers, early papers, they were very highly cited, and nobody would have missed him. So, all the science administrators in this country, from Professor Chidambaram or C.N.R. Rao or DST, DBT and so on, ICR and so on, they must regularly scan this database and look for bright spots. And then they should decide where to pump in money, whom to give tenure, who should be promoted as professor, and who should be given a scholarship, who should be awarded fellowships to academies, and who should be given Bhatnagar Prize, all that. These decisions must include, among other things, among other peer review processes, a quick scan of all these databases, especially citation index databases. Three of his day's seminal papers, every 3 years he used to write a paper in the 50s, 53, 56, 59. He wrote less than 50 papers or less than 60 papers in all his life. And in 53, 56 and 59, he wrote 3 seminal papers. And the 59 paper is the one which he clearly declared it is enterotoxin and so on, and also how to tackle it. They were cited well. The 59th paper was published in Nature, the best of world's journals as to many of us. What happened? In the first 5 years, it didn't receive even 4 citations. We all think Nature is a great journal, high impact and so on. This paper did not receive even 4 citations after 5 years of publication. So it doesn't mean high impact journal means it's highly cited and so on. Your own paper should be cited. It's not the impact factor of the journal which is important. That's why I always say we use impact factor wrongly. So, but later on it picked up and then it went on to win more than 175 citations. The other papers were cited 500, 200 and so on. So it was not a case of delayed recognition or anything. That it was recognized elsewhere in the world, but not here in this country. In fact, 2 champions of cholera research, one Heiningen and Sealing, they wrote like this. This paper in Nature, where he discovered discovery of enterotoxin was announced, deserves to go down as a classic in the history of cholera, and indeed in the history of cellular physiology and biochemistry. In a book in 1983. Okay. A number of people in India misuse citation data. In fact, people come to me and ask, what is my impact factor? It doesn't have any meaning. Impact factor is only meant for journals. And the founder of this system, Dr. Eugene Grofield, he has written many times that you should use it carefully, it is not meant for these things and so on, but nobody seems to care. They don't read that. Somehow it got into their mind, it is impact factor is an important indicator, I should somehow use it for anything that they come to their mind. Scientists are obsessed with impact factor in this country. And all I want to say today, especially for our younger colleagues, you should use Web of Science. It can help you improve your scholarly communication system, your ability to communicate your papers well, enhance the performance in research. You will be doing better research in future if you use it, and it will enhance your own research papers visibility across the world. So more people will come to know of you, they will start quoting you and so on, and it will put you on the career path of in the right direction. And you should try and use it as much as you can, especially when you are sitting in your desk without actually doing a laboratory experiment. You can keep your computer on and go to WS. It should be your opening page. Web of Science should be your opening page. Often in India, even in elsewhere, librarians invest very heavily in subscription to journals and databases to the detriment of buying books and so on. Unfortunately, in India, the money spent on this does not bring in enough returns. There is no value for money because many research scientists in our system, universities and national institutes and so on, hardly ever use these databases. Why do we pay so much money to Elsevier or Thomson Reuters and so on and not use the database? That shouldn't happen at ITRISAT, because this is one of the better institutions in this country. And I think this institute should be a trailblazer. It should be a model for others in the effective use of information resources that are available to you. Thank you very much. Yep. You should come to a mic, please. You should come to a mic.
How will you compare Corpus to Web of Science?
Well, Web of Science was there all along. So Elsevier came on the scene and then wanted to have their own product. And the kind of things that I have been talking today is not replicated in Scopus. It provides citations. It covers more journals. They didn't believe in the 2080 rule. They thought more journals will be more attractive to the user community, so they started doing. But there are not many major differences. They are by two different companies, both in the game of making money for themselves, also trying to help users. But these subtle differences which experts for expert users, I would rate citation index better. And there are a couple of researchers who have devoted a lot of time to compare these. One Peter Jackson and one other person called Luke Lederstuff in Amsterdam. These people have written extensively comparing these two databases, and they have voted in favor of citation index. So something more substantive and really useful to us. Yeah, please. Yep.
So I know that you also mentioned impact factor. They are not meant for basically measuring the impact of a scientist, impact of research. But what about the Harsing index? And this is coming very important.
Yeah. Okay. The H index, like the impact factor, and then there are P index and so on, like Dangan Pratap and others. So it's a game that we don't really have to play. What is important is number of citations that you receive for a paper. That is reasonably a good indicator. Like I said, Day's paper in Nature, which is highest impact even at the time, did not bring 4 citations to him in the early days, although the paper was great. Later on, people recommended it to Nobel Prize and they said it is go down as a classic and so on, but nobody noticed it. Actually, many Indians, when they publish papers in Nature, they bring down the impact factor of Nature. Okay, I have written about it long ago. So, but that's not the important thing. The most important thing is number of citations that you receive for each paper. Suppose if I receive on an average 10, 20 or 30 citations for my papers, I'm a reasonably good guy in science. Okay, I think we should rather concentrate on those than these indexes. But each one has its own detractors and supporters and so on. I mean, I would rather prefer not to look at them, but look at writing good papers and winning more citations and so on. Yeah.
So just follow up that one, and basically when we have the young colleagues, so they should have this clear idea. So as you said, that impact factor of journal is not that important. For instance, in case of Professor Day, he published a paper in Nature, but this was cited 4 times. In my opinion, that paper is not high quality paper. On the other hand, if you see other paper, for instance 50, but some of them he might have published just in current science, but if it has been cited 500 times, that indicates the value. And these parameters, they are included in Harsing index. As a scientist, if you publish 50 or 100 paper, then they say that H index is the minimum number of the paper which
yes,
is
I know.
times. So because of these reasons, in my opinion, H index is a better parameter for measuring the research of a paper. So this takes care. So this doesn't care that well you have published paper in 50 impact factor or 0.5, but this gives the value that well which paper, like even your impact factor paper of published in the Journal of Impact Factor 5 may have the better impact in science as compared to that paper which you have published in Nature or Science.
Okay, actually the paper by Day in Nature, I said, did not win more than 4 in the first 5 years, but later on it went on to accumulate 175. Okay, so it's not as if Nature paper was not quoted. And then you look at the judgment of Lederberg and 2 other famous scientists, that one fellow recommended him for Nobel Prize for more than once, The other two guys called it a classic, not just in cholera, but in the entire history of biochemistry and so on. So it's really a great paper. Instead of, even if it had not been cited, the judgment of people working in that area, that is what we should look for. Okay, so I generally believe that scientists, especially the younger ones, rather than spending too much time and investing so much of effort to look for impact and so on. In fact, I think they should look for writing a good paper, publishing a decent journal. The rest will follow. That's what I say. So it does not mean that you totally ignore impact factor. So let evaluators and all, let them look at it. So as a researcher, our job is to do research of high quality. Okay, that's what we should look at. So chasing these artificial indicators is not all that good for us, especially in the early career of an individual. It's not all that good.
There is also one database like for the what is the popular magazine type like Google Scholar, how it comes, especially for the social science, like a newspaper, even other general article also comes.
Yeah, it's a good one because first of all it is free, and I'm always a great admirer of good things available for free for a wide audience. Okay, and these are very expensive databases because it is such as money you could subscribe, and also I understand it is not subscribed solely by one group. Several groups have to contribute or something. That's what I understand. So, and the universities have subscribed largely because InfibNet pays the money, UGC, and they will stop after 5 years. What will happen? So suddenly these people will lose access to that. By the time they really learn how to use it, they will lose access. So whereas Google Scholar is for some more time to come, that's also a corporation. Suddenly they may also start charging. We don't know, but as of now it's good. But they don't give all the details. Now this database gives you full web pictures. Google Scholar just gives a number in the bracket cited, and we do not know whether it was cited in Hindu and Times of India or it was cited in a good journal. We do not know also. But by and large it is okay. By and large it's a free database. We can't, after something is offered free, they say if a cow is offered free, you can't hold and see the teeth or something. It's okay. To that extent it's a great database. It's a very good database. It's not a bad one at all. In fact, I first search Google Scholar. Every time I go for a paper, I look for Google Scholar, scholar.google. Yeah. Here.
I think first, where you can publish a paper, that depends on where the paper originated from.
Yeah.
Much of the publication of journals with high factor of visibility are in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Any paper submitted from the southern hemisphere just gets rejected outright quite often. And any of those good papers, if they're published in the southern hemisphere, they hardly get quoted, even if they have the best of the science and best of the approach. And I can just give you an example of a recent some paper on, say, plant resistance or something, was published in the annual reviews of some high impact thing. Didn't have even a single citation from the southern hemisphere. So this bias of origin citations is also skewed. Who does what, where, and when?
Yeah. Yes, there's a lot of truth in what you say. Of course, this is not connected to the citation, the topic today, but it's a good question. Okay. Now, situations are improving a lot now. If you see Northern America today, you see, they always said that Africans and Indians cannot write English well. Okay, but today, major newspapers of USA, every one of them has a very senior position, some Indian. Today, if you take the medical profession, you see a lot of them. So the situation is changing. And earlier days, people all over the world thought Africans are inferior. Today, you have Nobel Prize winners like Achebe. Okay, today you have people like Mandela. Things are improving all over because these are historical residues. We had slavery, we had somebody else colonizing us, and so on. So history takes time to mellow and change. But this is a good question. It happens. The part of the problem is with us as well, because the way we write, the way we present our papers, etc. That also is somewhat lacking. Unlike in the Western universities, there is not much attention paid to what are called soft skills, communication abilities. The Tata company, TCS, had a problem. One day, Professor Swaminathan said, Arun, I'm going to TCS. I said, what are you going to do in TCS? They are computer guys. No. They are training some young kids in speaking English, and there's a convocation. I'm going. Okay, he was in a hurry, so I left him go. And then when he came back, I asked, how was your convocation? I asked him. Arun, these guys are really good, because these college guys that cannot write English and conduct themselves. They select them, pay their entire upkeep, salary, and then train them for 6 months, and then take them into, absorb them into company. 90 out of 100 graduates, college graduates, cannot be taken for jobs. That is a statistics given by major organizations. So these are problems. So we have to, it's not just blaming the West or North, as you say. We have a lot of problems of our own, but things are improving in my opinion. There's more travel taking place, east, west, north, south, and so on. More people are wanting to come and set up companies in China and India now, more than in Europe or US, and more capital is flowing towards these countries. And there's a tremendous improvement. Things will change, but as I said, history changes slowly. Okay. Yes, sir.
With those tools where you can have that web and basically sort of compare to what others write and everything, is there not a risk of a sort of sort of reach? For example, you were looking at the citation of different papers and how they sort of co-cite a number of the papers. But what is the risk of having of sort of converging where to a sort of politically correct average, if you prefer?
Yeah.
And science to me is really like the art of, well, scientifically, politically incorrectness.
Yeah. Okay.
You bring new ideas, but you are not sort of.
Just
a number of sort of very good example of. There's an article called "How the Mighty Have Fallen" or something, and it's all about papers that were published by people that eventually got Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
So how do you sort of avoid converging where that sort of common denominator, where people sort of co-cite one another, even if all that is rubbish? And sometimes people certain papers are really nicely cited, even if what it contains is really not good quality. So what is the risk that beyond sort of homogenizing the way of thinking, the risk is also to really not get into, you just settle with a citation and an abstract and everything, and not really read the content. And that's really for the young people here. That sometimes you are happy, oh yeah, that paper has been cited many times, it must be good, no?
Yeah.
But what is my own judgment of it?
Yeah. Okay. This question relates to our previous question. Years ago, a famous economist, I don't remember whether it's Amartya Sen or someone else, he wrote a paper. He listed all the papers in economics which were rejected first by a journal, and later on went on to become pillars of economics, the great foundations of economics. So there are 2 points here. One, the writing and submitting of paper for publication is one part. The other part is the editor's judgment. Now the editor's judgment is a human activity. Like all human activity, there's a tremendous possibility for erring. So the first level, he rejects it. Sometimes it is too far ahead of the idea, and then it is not melding with the current thought and so on. He rejects it, for example. And finally, someone else finds it is offbeat, but something substantially useful and so on. He publishes it and so on. The second thing, that the herd mentality. So many people have quoted, let me also quote it. This is very common, very common. So that is why one should insist because it is something like I have a tool, I have to use the tool, something like that. I have access to a particular reference which is highly cited. Let me also cite it in my paper or something. So this tendency is something only a good teacher or a mentor can correct among people. So it's very important to have this mentoring process in science. Of late, what happens is it has become more like a corporate unit, like a factory production, PhD production. They use the word PhD production as if it is steel or something. So the mentoring aspect is falling behind, and the production aspect is taking care. Even in India, they say you should increase our higher education system to produce so many doctorates, produce as if it is some inanimate object. So you can't produce something, the human, this is the change of the mind of a person, improving his quality to produce knowledge and so on. So this is the attitude. So this happens. Therefore, it is very important. This is not the problem of citation index anyway. Citation index tells you which are the papers which are highly cited. The quoting is done by you or your student or whoever. So it's a human problem. The database cannot do much about it. And the human problems can be sorted out only by proper mentoring by advisors and teachers and mentors. Thank you very much. I have been in this hall before to conduct a 2-day workshop on open access. After it was long ago, and maybe 5-6 years ago. And after a long time, that I'm quite happy to be here with all of you, young and scientists, especially the young scientists, and for this opportunity to evangelize the use of citation indexing. Yeah. Thank you.